Hello and welcome back to our series on the Arthurian legends. This is part 3, in which Sir Balin fights with his brother Sir Balan. We are continuing from chapter 5 of the work, which will be linked in the description if you want to follow along with the series. I'll be populating a playlist with each part, and if you subscribe and click the like button, then you won't miss it when the next part comes out. Now let's get nice and relaxed and continue. Chapter 5. Sir Balin fights with his brother, Sir Balan. Now there was a knight at the court more envious than the others of Sir Balin, for he counted himself one of the best knights in Britain. His name was Lankier, and going to the king, he begged to leave to follow Sir Balin and avenge the insult he had put upon the court. "Do your best," replied the king, "for I am passing wroth with Balin." In the meantime came Merlin, and was told of this adventure of the sword and the Lady of the Lake. "Now hear me," said he, "when I tell ye that this lady who hath brought the sword is the falsest damsel living." "Say not so," they answered, "for she hath brought a brother, a good knight, who slew another knight this damsel loved. So she, to be revenged upon her brother, went to the Lady Lyle of Avalon, and besought her help. Then the Lady Lyle gave her the sword, and told her that no man should draw it forth but one, a valiant knight and strong, who should avenge on her brother. This, therefore, was the reason why the damsel came here." "I know it all as well as you do," answered Merlin. "And would to God she had never come hither, for never came she into any company but to do harm. And that good knight who hath achieved the sword shall be himself slain by it, which shall be the great harm and loss, for a better knight there liveth not, and he shall do unto my lord the king great honour and service." Then Sir Lankier, having armed himself at all points, mounted and rode after Sir Balin as fast as he could, and overtaking him he cried aloud, "Abide, Sir Knight, wait yet a while, or I shall make thee do so." But hearing him cry, Sir Balin fiercely turned upon his horse and said, "Fair knight, what wilt thou with me? Wilt thou joust?" "Yea," said Sir Lankier, "it is for that I have pursued thee." "Peradventure," answered Balin, "thou hadst best have stayed at home, for many a man who thinketh himself already victor ended by his own downfall. Of what court art thou?" "Of the court of King Arthur," cried Lankier, "and I come to revenge the insult thou hast put on it this day." "Well," said Sir Balin, "I see that I must fight thee, and I repent to be obliged to grieve King Arthur of his knights, and thy quarrel seemeth full foolish to me, for the damsel that is dead worked endless evil through the land, or else I had been loth as any knight that liveth to have slain a lady." "Make thee ready," shouted Lankier, "for one of us shall rest forever in this field." But at their first encounter, Sir Lankier's spear flew into splinters from Sir Balin's shield, and Sir Balin's lance pierced with such might through Sir Lankier's shield that it rove the hauberk also, and passed through the knight's body and the horse's crupper. And Sir Balin, turning fiercely round again, drew out his sword, and knew not that he had already slain him, and then he saw him lie a corpse upon the ground. At the same moment came a damsel riding towards him as fast as her horse could gallop, who, when she saw the knight dead, wept and sorrowed out of measure, crying, "O Sir Balan, 2 bodies hast thou slain, and 1 heart, and 2 hearts in 1 body, and 2 souls also thou hast lost." Therewith she took the sword from her dead lover's side, for she was Sir Lancear's love, and setting the pommel of it on the ground, ran herself through the body with the blade. When Sir Balin saw her dead, he was so sorely hurt and grieved in spirit, and repented the death of Lancear, which had also caused a fair lady's death. And being unable to look on their bodies for sorrow, he turned into a forest, where he presently rode and saw the arms of his brother, Sir Balan. And when they were met, they put off their helms, embraced each other, and wept for joy and pity. And then Sir Balin told Sir Balan all his late adventures, and that he was on his way to the King Rience, who at the time was besieging Castle Terrabil. "I will be with thee," answered Sir Balan, "and we will help each other as brethren ought to do." Anon by chance, as they were talking, came King Mark of Cornwall by the way, and when he saw the 2 dead bodies of Sir Lancear and his lady lying there, and heard the stories of their death, he vowed to build a tomb to them before he left that place. So pitching his pavilion there, he sought through all the country round to find a monument, and found at last a rich and fair one in a church, which he took and raised above the dead knight and his damsel, writing on it, "Here lieth Lancear, son of the King of Ireland, who at his own request was slain by Balin, and here beside him also lieth his lady Colombe, who slew herself with her lover's sword for grief and sorrow." Then, as Sir Balin and Sir Balan rode away, Merlin met with them, and said to Balin, "Thou hast done thyself a great harm, not to have saved that lady's life who slew herself, and because of it thou shalt strike the most dolorous stroke that man ever struck, save he that smote our Lord. For thou shalt smite the truest and most worshipful of living knights, who shall not be recovered from his wounds for many years, and through that stroke 3 kingdoms shall be overwhelmed in poverty and misery." "If I believed," said Balin, "what thou sayest, I would slay myself to make thee a liar." At that, Merlin suddenly vanished away, but afterwards he met them in disguise towards night, and he told them he could lead them to King Rience, whom they sought. For this night he is to ride with 60 lancers, only through a wood hard by. So Sir Balin and Balan hid themselves within the wood, and at midnight came out from their ambush among the leaves by the highway, and waited for the king, whom presently they heard approaching with his company. They did then suddenly leap forth, smote him, overthrew him, lay him on the ground, and turning on his company, wounded and slew 40 of them, and put the rest to flight. And returning to King Rience, they would have slain him there, but he craved mercy, and yielding to their grace, crying, "Knights full of prowess, slay me not, for by my life ye may win something, but my death can avail ye naught." "Ye say truth," said the 2 knights, and put him on a horse litter, and went swiftly through the night, till at cockcrow they came to King Arthur's palace, It was there that they delivered him to the wardens and porters to be brought before the king with this message, that he was sent to King Arthur by the Knight of Two Swords, for so Balin was known by name since his adventure with the damsel, and by his brother. And so they rode away again ere at sunrise. Within a month or two thereafter, King Arthur, being somewhat sick, went forth outside the town, and had his pavilion pitched in a meadow, and there abode, and laid him down on a pallet to sleep. But he could get no rest. And as he lay, he heard the sound of a great horse, and looking out of the tent door, saw a knight ride by, making great lamentation. "Abide, fair sir," said King Arthur, "and tell me wherefore thou makest this sorrow." "Ye may little amend it," said the knight, and he so passed on. Presently after, Sir Balin rode, by chance, past that meadow, and when he saw the king, he alighted and came to him on foot, and kneeled and saluted him. "By my head," said King Arthur, "ye be welcome, Sir Balin." And then he thanked him heartily for revenging him upon King Rience, and for sending him so speedily a prisoner to his castle, and told him how King Nero, Rience's brother, had attacked him afterwards to deliver Rience from prison, and how he had defeated and slain him, and also King Lot of Orkney, who was joined with Nero, and whom King Pellinore had killed in battle. Then, when they had thus talked, King Arthur told Sir Balin of the sullen knight that had just passed his tent, and desired him to pursue and to bring him back. So Sir Balin rode and overtook the knight in a forest with the damsel, and said, "Sir knight, thou must come back with me unto my lord King Arthur, and tell him of the cause of thy sorrow, which thou hast refused even now to do." The knight replied, "That will I not, for it would harm me much, and do him no advantage." "Sir," said Sir Balin, "I pray thee make ready, for thou must needs to go with me, or else I must fight with thee and take thee by force." "Wilt thou be a warrant for safe conduct if I go with me?" inquired the knight. "Yea, surely," answered Balin, "I will die else." And so the knight made ready to go with Sir Balin, and left the damsel in the wood. But as they went, there came one invisible, and smote the knight through the body with a spear. "Alas," cried Sir Herlius, for so he was named, "I am slain under thy garden conduct, by that traitor knight called Garlon, whom through magic and witchcraft rideth invisibly. Take therefore my horse, which is better than thine, and ride to the damsel whom we left, and follow the quest I had in hand, and she will lead thee, and revenge my death when thou best mayest." "That I will do," said Sir Balan, "by my knighthood, and so I swear it to thee." Then went Sir Balin to the damsel, and rode forth with her, she carrying ever with her the truncheon of the spear wherewith Sir Herlius had been slain. And as they went, a good knight, Perrin de Montbelgar, joined their company, and vowed to take adventure with them wheresoever they may go. But presently, as they passed a hermitage fast by a churchyard, came the knight Garlon, again invisible, and smote Sir Perrin through the body with a spear, and slew him as he had Sir Herlius. Whereat Sir Balin greatly raged, and swore to have Sir Garlon's life. Whenever next he may encounter and behold his bodily shape, he swore to do so. Anon he and the hermit buried the good knight Sir Perrin, and rode with the damsel till they came to the great castle, whereinto they were about to enter. But when Sir Balan had passed through the gateway, the portcullis fell behind him suddenly, leaving the damsel on the outer side, with men around her, drawing swords as if to slay. When he saw that, Sir Balin claimed with eager haste, climbed the wall and tower, and leapt into the castle moat, and rushed towards the damsel and her enemies, with his sword drawn, to fight and slay them all. But they cried out, "Put up thy sword, Sir Knight, we will not fight thee in this quarrel, for we do nothing but an ancient custom of this castle." Then they told him that the lady of the castle was passing sick, and had lain ill for many years, and might never more be cured, unless she had a silver dish full of the blood of a pure maid and a king's daughter. Wherefore the custom of the castle was, that never should a damsel pass that way, but she must give a dish full of her blood. Then Sir Balan suffered them to bleed the damsel, with her own consent, but her blood helped not the lady of the castle. So on the morrow they departed, after right good cheer and rest. Then they rode out 3 or 4 days without adventure, and came at last to the abode of a rich man, who sumptuously lodged and fed them. And while they sat at supper, Sir Balin heard a voice of someone groaning grievously. "What noise is this?" he said. "Forsooth," said the host, "I will tell ye. It was lately at a tournament where I was, and there I fought a knight who is brother to King Pelles, and overthrew him twice, for which he swore to be revenged on me through my best friend, and so he wounded my son, who cannot be recovered till I have that knight's blood, but he rideth through witchcraft always invisibly, and I know not his name." "Ah," said Sir Balin, "but I know him. His name is Garlon, and he hath slain 2 knights, companions of mine own, in the same fashion, and I would rather than all the riches in this realm that I might meet him face to face." "Well," said his host, "let me now tell thee that King Pelles has proclaimed in all the country a great festival to be held at Listenis in 20 days from now, whereto no knight may come without a lady. At that great feast we might perchance find out this Garlon, for many will be there, and if it pleases thee, we will set forth together." So on the morrow they rode all 3 towards Listenis. They travelled 15 days, and reached it on the day the feast began. Then they alighted, and stabled their horses, and went up to the castle, and Sir Balin's host was denied entrance, having no lady with him. But Sir Balan was hardly received, and taken to a chamber, where they unarmed him, and dressed him in rich robes of any colour he chose, and told him he must lay aside his sword. This, however, he refused, and said, "It is the custom of my country for a knight to keep his sword ever with him, and if I may not keep it here, I will forthwith depart." And then they gave him leave to wear his sword. So when he went to the great hall, and was set among the knights of high rank and worship, and his lady before him, soon he found means to ask who sat near him. "Is there not here a knight whose name is Garlon?" "Yonder he goeth," said his neighbour. "He with that black face. He is the most marvellous knight alive, for he rideth invisibly, and destroyeth whom he will." "Ah, well," said Balin, drawing a long breath, "is that indeed the man I have aforetime heard of him?" Then he mused long with himself, and thought, if I shall slay him here and now, I shall not escape myself. But if I leave him, peradventure I shall never meet with him again at such advantage, and if he live, how much more harm and mischief will he do? But while he deeply thought, and cast his eyes from time to time upon Sir Balan, that false knight saw that he watched him, and thinking that he could at such a time escape revenge, he came and smote Sir Balin on the face with the back of his hand. And he said, Knight, why dost thou so watch me? Be ashamed and eat thy meat, and do what thou camest for. Thou sayest well, said Sir Balan, rising fiercely now. Now I will straightway do that which what I came to do, as thou shalt find. With that he whirled his sword aloft, and struck him downright on the head, clove his skull asunder to the shoulder. Give me the truncheon, cried out Sir Balan to his lady, wherewith he slew the knight. And when she gave it to him, for she had always carried it about with her, wherever she had gone, he smote him through the body with it, and said, with that truncheon didst thou treacherously murder a good knight, and now it sticketh in thy felon villainous body. Then he called to the father of the wounded son, who had come with him to Listenis, and said, Now take as much blood as thou wilt, to heal thy son withal. But now arose a terrible confusion, and all the knights leaped from the table to slay Balin. King Pelles himself the foremost, who cried out, Knight, thou hast slain my brother at my board. Die, therefore, die, for thou shalt never leave this castle. Slay me thyself then, shouted Balin. Yea, said the king, that will I do, for no other man shall touch thee, for the love I bear for my brother. Then King Pelles caught in his hand a grim weapon, and smote eagerly at Balin. But Balin put his sword between his head and the king's stroke, and saved himself. But he lost his sword, which fell down smashed and shivered into pieces by the blow. So being weaponless, he ran to the next room to find a sword, and so from room to room, with King Pelles after him, he in vain eagerly casting his eyes round every place to find some kind of weapon. At last he ran into a chamber wondrously and richly decked, where was a bed, all dressed with cloth of gold, the richest that could be thought of, and one who lay quite still within the bed, and by the bedside stood a table of pure gold, borne on 4 silver pillars, and on the table stood a marvellous spear strangely wrought. When Sir Balin saw the spear, he seized it in his hand, and turned upon King Pelles, and smote at him so fiercely and so sore that he dropped swooning upon the ground. But at that dolorous and awful stroke, the castle rocked and rove throughout, and all the walls fell, crashed and breaking to the earth, and Balin himself fell also in their midst, struck, as it were, to stone, and powerless to move a hand or a foot. And so 3 days he lay amidst the ruins, until Merlin came and raised him up, and brought him a good horse, and bade him ride out of that land as swiftly as he could. May I not take the damsel with me I brought hither, said Balin. Lo, where she lieth dead, said Merlin. Ah, little knowest thou, Sir Balan, what thou hast done. For in the castle, in that chamber which thou didst defile, was the blood of our Lord Jesus Christ, and also that most holy cup, the sangreal, wherefrom the wine was drunk at the last supper of our Lord. Joseph of Arimathea brought it to this land, when first he came here to convert and save it. And on that bed of gold it was himself who lay, and strange spear beside him, wherewith the soldier longest smote our Lord, and which evermore had dripped with blood. King Pelles is the nearest king to Joseph in direct descent. Before he held those holy things in trust, but now they have all gone at thy dolorous stroke, no man knoweth whither. And great is the damage to this land, which unto now had been the happiest of all, for by that stroke thou hast slain thousands, and by the loss and parting of the Sangreal, the safety of this realm is put in peril, and its great happiness is gone for evermore. Then Balin departed from Merlin, struck to his soul with grief and sorrow, and said, In this world we shall meet nevermore. So he rode forth through the fair cities and the country, and found the people lying dead on every side, and all the living cried out on him as he passed, O Balin, all this misery hast thou done, for the dolorous strike thou gavest Kings Pelles 3 countries are destroyed, and doubt not but revenge will fall on thee at last. When he had passed the boundary of these countries, he was somewhat comforted, and rode 8 days without great adventure. Anon he came to a cross, whereon was written in letters of gold, It is not for a knight alone to ride towards this castle. Looking up, he saw a hoary ancient man come toward him, who said, Sir Balan the savage, thou passest thy bounds this way, therefore turn back again. It will be best for thee. And with these words he vanished quickly. Then he did hear a horn blow, as if it were the death note of some hunted beast. That blast, said Balin, is blown for me, for I am the prey, though yet I not be dead. But as soon as he spoke, he saw 100 ladies, with a great troop of knights come forth to meet him with bright faces and great welcome, who led him to the castle, and made a great feast, with dancing and all manner of joy. Then the chief lady of the castle said, Knight with the 2 swords, thou must encounter and fight with a knight hard by who dwelleth on an island, for no man may pass this way without encountering him. It is a grievous custom, answered Sir Balan, and the lady replied, There is but one knight to defeat. Well, said Sir Balan, be it as thou wilt. I am ready and quite willing, and though my horse and my body be full weary, yet it is my heart not save of life, and truly I were glad if I might meet my death. Sir, said one standing by, methinketh your shield is not good. I will lend you a greater one. I thank thee, good sir, said Balin, and took the unknown shield and left his own, riding so forth, and put himself on a horse into a boat and came to the island. As soon as he landed, he saw coming riding towards him a knight dressed all in scarlet, upon a horse trapped in the same colour. When the Red Knight saw Sir Balan and the 2 swords that he wore, he thought it must have been his brother, for the Red Knight was Sir Balan. But when he saw the strange arms on his shield, he forgot the thought, and came against him fiercely. At first, of course, they overthrew each other, and both lay swooning upon the ground, but Sir Balin was the most hurt and bruised, for he was weary and spent with travelling. So Sir Balan rose up first to his feet and drew his sword, and Sir Balin painfully rose against him and raised his shield. There Sir Balan smote him through, and the shield and his helmet broke, and Sir Balin in return smote at him with his fated sword, and had well nigh slain his own brother. and so they fought until their breaths failed them. Then Sir Balin, looking up, saw all the castle towers stand full of ladies. So they went again to battle, and wounded each other full sore, and paused and breathed again, and then again began to fight, and thus for many times this they did, till all the ground was red with blood. And by now each had full grievously wounded the other with 7 great wounds, the least of which might have destroyed the mightiest giant in the world. But still they rose against each other, although their hauberks were now all unnailed, and they smiting each other's naked bodies with their sharp swords over and over again. At last Sir Balan, the younger brother, withdrew a little space and laid him down. Then said Sir Balin the Savage, "What knight art thou? For never before I have found a knight who matches me thus." "My name," said he, all faintly, "is Balan, brother to the good knight Sir Balin." "Oh my God," cried Balin, "that ever I should see this day," and therewith fell backwards in a swoon. Then Sir Balan crept with pain upon his hands and feet, and put his brother's helmet off his head, but could not know him by his face, it was so hued and bloody. But presently, when Sir Balin came, he said, "O Balan, my own brother, thou hast slain thee, and I have slain thee. All the wide world never saw greater grief." "Alas," said Sir Balan, "that I ever saw this day, and through mishap alone I knew thee not. For when I saw thy 2 swords, if it had not been for thy strange shield, I should have known thee for my own brother." Anon came the lady of the castle, and when she heard of their talk, and saw their evil case, for they had planned against them, she wrung her hands and wept bitterly. So Sir Balan prayed the lady of her gentleness that for his true service she would bury them both together in that space. This she granted, weeping full sore, and said it should be done right solemnly and richly, and in the noblest manner possible. Then did they send for a priest, and receive the holy sacrament at his hands, and Balin said, "Write over us upon this tomb, that here 2 brethren slew each other. There shall never be good knight or pilgrim pass this way, but he will pray for both our souls." And anon Sir Balan died, but Sir Balin died not till the midnight after, and then they both were buried. On the morrow of their death came Merlin, and took Sir Balin's sword, and fixed on it a new pommel, and set it in a mighty stone, which then, by magic, he made float upon the water, and so for many years it floated to and fro around the island, till it swam down to the river to Camelot, where young Sir Galahad achieved it, as shall be told hereafter. Chapter 6. The marriage of Arthur and Guinevere, and the founding of the Round Table. It befell upon a certain day that King Arthur said to Merlin, "My lords and knights do daily pray me now to take a wife, but I will have none without thy counsel, for thou hast ever helped me since I first came to the crown." "It is well," said Merlin, "that thou shouldst take a wife, for no man of bounteous and noble nature should live without one. But is there any lady whom thou lovest better than another?" "Yea," said King Arthur, "I love Guinevere, the daughter of King Leodegrance of Camelgard, who also holdeth in his house the round table that he had from my father Uther. And as I think, that damsel is the gentlest and fairest lady who ever lived. Sir, answered Merlin, as for her beauty, she is one of the fairest to live. But if ye had not loved her as ye do, I would fain have ye choose some other who was both fair and good. But where a man's heart is set, he will be loth to leave. This Merlin said, knowing the misery that should hereafter happen from this marriage. Then King Arthur sent word to Leodegrance that he mightily desired to wed his daughter, and how that he loved her since he at first saw her. When the king's ban and Bors, he rescued Leodegrance from King Rience of North Wales. When King Leodegrance heard the message, he cried out, These be the greatest tidings I have heard in all my life. So great and worshipful a prince to seek my daughter for his wife. I would fain give him half my lands with her straightway, but he needeth not. And better will it please him that I send him the round table of King Uther his father, with 100 good knights, towards the furnishing of it with guests, for he will soon find means to gather more, and make the table full. Then King Leodegrance delivered his daughter Guinevere to the messengers of King Arthur, and also the round table with 100 knights. So they rode royally and freshly, sometimes by water, sometimes by land towards Camelot. And as they rode along in the spring weather, they made full many sports and pastimes, and in all those sports and games a young knight came to Arthur's court, Sir Launcelot by name, who was passing strong and won praise from all, being full of grace and hardiness, and Guinevere also looked on him with joy. And always in the eventide, when the tents were set beside some stream or forest, many minstrels came and sang before the knights and ladies as they sat in the tent doors, and many knights would tell adventures, and Sir Launcelot was foremost, and told the knightliest tales, sang the goodliest songs of all the company. And when they came to Camelot, King Arthur made a great joy, and all the city with him, and riding forth with a great retinue he met Guinevere and her company, and led her through the streets all filled with people, and in the midst of her shoutings and the ringing of church bells, to a palace hard by his son. Then, in all haste, the king commanded to prepare the marriage and the coronation, with the stateliest and most honourable pomp that could be made. And when the day had come, the archbishops led the king to the cathedral, whereto he walked, clad in his royal robes, and having 4 kings bearing 4 golden swords before him, a choir passing sweet music going also. In another part was the queen dressed in her richest of ornaments, and led by archbishops and bishops to the chapel of the virgins. The 4 queens also of the 4 kings last mentioned walked before her, bearing 4 white doves, according to ancient custom, and after her there followed many damsels, singing and making every sign of joyful merriment. And when the 2 processions came to the churches, so wondrous was the music and the singing, that all the knights and barons who were there pressed on each other, as in the crowd of battle, to hear and see the most they might. When the king was crowned, he called together all knights that came with the round table from Camelgard, and 28 others, great and valiant men, chosen by Merlin out of all the realm, towards making up the full numbers of the table. Then the Archbishop of Canterbury blessed the seats of all the knights, and when they rose again therefrom to pay their homage to King Arthur, there was found upon the back of each knight's seat his name, written in letters of gold, but upon one seat was found written, "This is the siege perilous, wherein any man shall sit, save him whom heaven hath chosen, he shall be devoured by fire." Anon came young Gawain, the king's nephew, praying to be made a knight, whom the king knighted then and there. Soon after came a poor man, leading with him a tall, fair lad of 18 years of age, riding on a lean mare. And falling at the king's feet, the poor man said, "Lord, it was told me that at this time of thy marriage thou wouldst giveth to any man any gift he asked, so as it were not so unreasonable." "Thou sayest graciously and nobly," said the poor man. "Lord, I ask nothing else, but thou wilt make my son here a knight." "It is a great thing thou hast asked," said the king. "What is thy name?" "Ares, the cowherd," he answered. "Cometh this prayer from thee or from thy son?" inquired King Arthur. "Nay, Lord, not from myself, but from him only. For I have 13 other sons, and all of them will fall to any labor I put them to. But this one will do no such work for anything that I or my wife may do, but is for ever shooting or fighting or running to see knights and joustings, and torments me both night and day that he be made a knight." "And what is thy name?" said the king to the young man. "My name is Tor," said he. And then the king, looking upon him steadfastly, was well pleased with his face and figure, and with his look of nobleness and strength. "Fetch all thy other sons before me," said the king to Ares. But when he brought them, none of them resembled Tor in size or shape or feature. Then the king knighted Tor, saying, "Be thou in thy life's end a good knight and a true, and as I pray God thou mayest be, and if thou provest worthy and of prowess, one day thou shalt be counted in the round table." Then, turning to Merlin, Arthur said, "Prophesy now, O Merlin, that Sir Tor become a worthy knight or not." "Yea, my lord," said Merlin, "so he ought to be, for he is the son of that King Pellinore whom thou hast met, and proved to be one of the best knights living. He is no cowherd's son." Presently came in the King Pellinore, and when he saw Sir Tor, he knew him for his son, and was more pleased than words can tell to find him knighted by the king. And Pellinore did homage to King Arthur, and was gladly and graciously accepted of the king, and then was led by Merlin to a high seat at the table round near to the perilous seat. But Sir Gawain was full of anger at the honour done to King Pellinore, and said to his brother Gaeredis, "He slew our father, King Lot, therefore I will slay him." "Do it not yet," said he. "Wait till I also be a knight, then I will help ye in it. It is best ye suffer him to go at this time, and not trouble this high feast with bloodshed." "As ye will be it," said Sir Gawain. Then rose to the king, and spake to all the table round, and charged them to ever be true and noble knights, to neither outrage, nor murder, nor any unjust violence, and always to flee treason, also by no means to ever be cruel, but to give mercy unto him, and asked for mercy upon pain of forfeiting the liberty of his court for evermore. Moreover, at all times, upon the pain of death, to give succour unto ladies and young damsels, and lastly, never to take part in any wrongful quarrel for reward or payment, and to all this he swore them night by night. Then he ordained that every year at Pentecost they should all come before him, wheresoever he might appoint a place, and give account of all their doings and adventures of the past 12 months. And so, with prayer and blessing, and high words of cheer, he instituted the most noble order of the Round Table, whereto the best and bravest knights in all the world sought afterwards to find their admission. Then was the high feast made ready, and the king and queen sat side by side before the whole assembly, and great and royal was the banquet and pomp. And as they sat, each man in his place, Merlin went around and said, "Still sit a while, for ye shall see a strange and marvellous adventure soon." So as they sat, there suddenly came running through the hall a white hart with a white hound next to him, and 30 couple of black running hounds making full cry, and the hart made circuit of the Round Table, and past the other tables, and suddenly the white hound flew upon him and bit him fiercely, and tore out a piece from his haunch. Whereat the hart sprang suddenly with a great leap, and overthrew a knight sitting at the table, who rose forthwith, and taking up the hound, mounted, and rode fast away. But no sooner had he left, than there came in a lady, mounted on a white palfrey, who cried out to the king, "Lord, suffer me not to have this injury. The hound is mine, that which the knight has taketh." And as she spoke, a knight rode in, all armed on a great horse, and suddenly took up the lady and rode away with her by force, although she greatly cried and moaned. Then the king desired Sir Gawain, Sir Tor, and King Pellinore to mount and follow this adventure to the uttermost, and told Sir Gawain to bring back the hart, Sir Tor the hound and knight, and Sir King Pellinore the knight and the lady. And so Sir Gawain rode forth at a swift pace, and with him Gaheris, his brother, for a squire. And as they went, they saw 2 knights fighting upon horseback, and when they reached them, they divided them, and asked them what the reason was for their quarrel. "We fight for a foolish matter," one replied, "for we be brethren. But there came by a white hart this way, chased by many hounds, and thinking it was an adventure for the high feast of King Arthur, I would have followed it to have gained worship, whereat my younger brother here declared he was a better knight and would go after it instead, and so we fight to prove which one of us is the better knight." "This is a foolish thing," said Sir Gawain. "Fight with all strangers if you will, but not with brother and brother. Take my advice. Set on against me, and if ye yield to me, as I shall do my best to make ye, ye shall go to King Arthur, and yield to his grace." "Sir Knight," replied the brother, "we are weary, and will do thy wish without encountering thee. But why whom shall we tell the king we were sent?" "By the knight that followeth the quest of the white hart," said Sir Gawain. "And now tell me your names, and let us part." "Sorlos and Brian of the forest," they replied, and so they went their way to the king's court. Then Sir Gawain, still following his quest by the distant baying of the hounds, came to a great river, and saw the hart swimming over and near to the further bank. And as he was about to plunge in and swim after, he saw a knight upon the other side, who cried, "Come not over here, Sir Knight, after a hart, save thou wilt joust with me." "I will not fail for that," said Sir Gawain, and swam his horse across the stream. Anon they got their spears and ran against each other fiercely, and Sir Gawain smote the stranger off his horse, and turning bade him yield. Nay, replied he, not so, for though ye have better of me on horseback, I pray thee, valiant knight, alight, and let us match together with our swords on foot. What is thy name? Quoth Gawain. Alherdin of the Isles, replied the stranger. And then they fell upon each other. But soon Sir Gawain struck him through the helm, so deeply and so hard that all of his brains were scattered, and Sir Alherdin fell dead. Ah, said Sir Gaheris, that was a mighty stroke for a young knight. Then did they turn again to follow the White Hart, and let slip 3 couple of greyhounds after him. And at last they chased him to a castle, and there they overtook and slew him in the chief courtyard. At that there rushed a knight forth from a chamber, with a drawn sword in his hand, and slew 2 of the hounds before their eyes, and chased the others from the castle, crying, O my white hart, alas, thou art dead, for the sovereign lady gave to me, and evil I have kept thee, but if I live, thy death shall be dearly bought. Anon he went within and armed, and came out fiercely and met Sir Gawain face to face. Why have ye slain my hounds? Said Sir Gawain. They did but after their nature, and ye had better have taken vengeance on me than on the poor dumb beasts. I will avenge me on thee also, said the other, ere thou depart this place. Then did they fight with each other savagely and madly, till the blood ran down to their feet, but at last Sir Gawain had the better, and felled the knight of the castle to the ground. And then he cried out for mercy, and yielded to Sir Gawain, and besought him, as he was a knight and gentleman, to save his life. Thou shalt die, said Sir Gawain, for slaying my hounds. I will make thee all amends within my power, replied the knight. But Sir Gawain would have no mercy, and unlaced his helm to strike his head off. And so blind he was with rage, that he saw not where a lady ran out from her chamber and fell down upon his enemy, and making a fierce blow at him, he smote off, mischance, the poor lady's head. Alas, cried Gaheris, foully and shamefully have ye done, the shame shall never leave ye. Why give ye not your mercy unto them that ask it? A knight without mercy is without worship also. And then Sir Gawain was sore amazed at the fair lady's death, and he knew not what to do, and said to the fallen knight, Arise, for I will give thee mercy. Nay, said he, I care not for thy mercy now, for thou hast slain my lady and my true love, that of all earthly things that I love the best. I repent me sorely of it, said Sir Gawain, for I meant to have struck thee. But now shalt thou go to King Arthur and tell him this adventure, and how thou hast been overcome by the knight who followeth the quest of the White Hart. I care not whether I live or die, or where I go, replied the knight. So Sir Gawain sent him to the court of Camelot, making him bear 1 dead greyhound, and 1 behind him on his horse. Tell me thy name before we part, said he. My name is Arthmore, Arthmore of the Marsh, he answered. Then went Sir Gawain into the castle, and prepared to sleep there, and began to unarm. But Gaheris upbraided him, saying, Will ye disarm in this strange country? Bethink ye, ye must needs have many enemies about. No sooner had he spoken than there came out suddenly 4 knights well armed and assailed on them, saying to Sir Gawain, "Thou new-made knight, how hast thou ashamed thy knighthood? A knight without mercy is dishonoured. Slayer of fair ladies, shame to thee for evermore. Doubt not thou shalt thyself have need of mercy ere we leave thee." Then were the brothers in great jeopardy, and feared for their lives, for they were but 2 to 4, and weary with travel. And one of the 4 knights shot Sir Gawain with a bolt, and hit him through the arm so that he could fight no more. But when there was nothing left for them but death, there came 4 ladies forth and prayed the 4 knights mercy of the strangers. So they gave Sir Gawain and Gawaidis their lives, and made them yield themselves prisoners. On the morrow came one of the ladies to Sir Gawain, and talked with him, saying, "Sir Knight, what cheer?" "Not good," said he. "It is your own default, sir," said the lady, "for ye have done a passing foul deed in slaying that fair damsel yesterday, and ever shall it be a great shame to you. But ye be not of Arthur's kin." "Yea, truly am I," said he. "My name is Gawain, son of King Lot of Orkney, whom King Pellinore slew, and my mother, Bellicent, is a half-sister to the king." When the lady heard that, she went and presently got leave for him to quit the castle. And they gave him the head of the White Hart to take with him, because it was in his quest, but made him also carry the dead lady with him, her head round his neck, and her body lay before him on his horse's neck. So, in that fashion, he rode back to Camelot, and when the king and queen saw him and heard tell of his adventures, they were heavily displeased. And by order of the queen, he was put on his trial before a court of ladies, who judged him to be evermore, for all his life, the knight of ladies' quarrels, and to fight always on their side, and never against any, except he fought for one lady and his adversary for another. Also, they charged him never to refuse mercy to him that asked it, and swore him on the holy Gospels. Thus ended the adventure of the White Hart. Meanwhile, Sir Tor had made him ready, and followed the knight who rode away with the hound. And as he went, there suddenly met him in the road a dwarf, who struck his horse so viciously upon the head with a great staff that he leaped backwards a spear's length. "Wherefore so smitest thou my horse, foul dwarf?" shouted Sir Tor. "Because thou shalt not pass this way," replied the dwarf, "unless thou fight for it with yonder knights in these pavilions," pointing to 2 tents, where 2 great spears stood out, and 2 shields hung up upon 2 trees hard by. "I may not tarry, for I am on a quest, and I must follow it," said Sir Tor. "Thou shalt not pass," replied the dwarf, and therewith blew his horn. Then rode out quickly Sir Tor, one-armed on horseback, but Sir Tor was quick as he, and riding at him, bore him from his horse, and made him yield. Directly after, still came another, yet more fierce, but with a few great strokes and buffets. Sir Tor unhorsed him also, and sent them both to Camelot to King Arthur. Then came the dwarf, and begged Sir Tor to take him in his service, for, he said, "I will serve no more recreant knights." "Take then a horse, and come with me," said Sir Tor. "Ride ye after the knight, with I the white hound," said the dwarf. "I can soon bring ye where he is." So they rode through the forest till they came to 2 more tents, and Sir Tor, alighting, went into the first, and saw 3 damsels lying there sleeping. Then went he to the other, and found another lady sleeping, and at her feet the white hound he sought for, which instantly began to bay and bark so loudly that the lady awoke. But Sir Tor seized the hound, and given it to the dwarf's charge. "What will ye do, Sir Knight?" cried out the lady. "Will ye take away my hound from me by force?" "Yea, lady," said Sir Tor, "for so I must, having the king's command, and I have followed it from King Arthur's court at Camelot to this place." "Well," said the lady, "ye will not go far before ye be ill handled, and will repent ye of this quest." "I shall carefully abide whatsoever adventure cometh by the grace of God," said Sir Tor, and so mounted his horse and began to ride back on his way. But night descending, he turned aside to a hermitage that was in the forest, and there abode till the next day, making but sorrowful cheer of such poor food as the hermit had to give him, and hearing a mass devoutly before he left on the morrow. And in the early morning, as he rode forth with the dwarf towards Camelot, he heard a knight call loudly after him, "Turn, turn, abide, Sir Knight, and yield me up the hound thou tookest from my lady." At which he turned, and saw a great and strong knight, armed in full splendour, riding down upon him fiercely through a glade of the forest. And now Sir Tor was very ill provided, for he had but an old courser, which was as weak as himself, because of the hermit's scanty fare. He waited, nevertheless, for the strange knight to come, and at the first onset with their spears each unhorsed the other, and then fell with their swords like 2 mad lions. Then did they smite through one another's shields and helmets till the fragments flew on all sides, and their blood ran out in streams. But yet they carved and rove through the thick armour of their hauberks, and gave each other great and ghastly wounds. But in the end Sir Tor, finding the strange knight faint, doubled his strokes until he beat him to the earth. Then did he bid him yield to his mercy. "That I will not," replied Abellius, "while my life lasteth and my soul is in this body, unless thou give me first the hound." "I cannot," said Sir Tor, "and will not, for it was my quest to bring it again, that hound, and thee unto King Arthur, or otherwise to slay thee." With that there came a damsel riding on a palfrey, as fast as she could drive it, and cried out to Sir Tor with a loud voice, "I pray thee, for King Arthur's love, grant me a gift." "Ask," said Sir Tor, "and I will grant thee." "Gramercy," said the lady, "I ask the head of this false knight Abellius, the most outrageous murderer that liveth." "I repent me of the gift I promised," said Sir Tor. "Let him make thee amends for all his trespasses against thee." "He cannot make amends," replied the damsel, "for he hath slain my brother, a far better knight than he, and scorned to give him mercy, though I kneeled for half an hour before him in the mire to beg it, and though it was but by a chance that they fought, and for no former inquiry or quarrel, I require my gift of thee as a true knight, or else will I shame thee in King Arthur's court. For this Abellius is the falsest knight alive, and a murderer of many." When Abellius heard this, he trembled greatly, and was sore afraid, and yielded to Sir Tor, and prayed for his mercy. I cannot now, Sir Knight, said he, lest I be false to my promise. You would not take my mercy when I offered it, and now it is too late. Therewith he unlaced his helmet and took it off, but Abelius in dismal fear struggled to his feet and fled, until Sir Tor overtook him and smote off his head entirely with one great blow. Now, sir, said the damsel, it is near night. I pray ye come and lodge at my castle. I will, with a good will, said he, for both his horse and he had fared but poorly since they left Camelot. So he went to the lady's castle and fared sumptuously, and saw her husband, an old knight, who greatly thanked him for his service and urged him oftentimes to come again. On the morrow he departed, and reached Camelot by noon, when the king and the queen rejoiced to see him, and the king made him earl, and Merlin prophesied that these adventures were but little to the things he should achieve hereafter. Now while Sir Gawain and Sir Tor had fulfilled their quest, King Pellinore pursued the lady whom the knight had seized away from the wedding feast. And as he rode through the woods he saw in a valley a fair young damsel sitting by a well side, and a wounded knight lay in her arms. King Pellinore saluted her as he passed. As soon as she perceived him, he cried out, "Help, help me, knight, for our Lord's sake!" But Pellinore was far too eager in his quest to stay or turn, although she cried 100 times to him for help, at which she prayed to heaven he might have such sore need before he died as she had now, and presently hereafter her knight died in her arms, and she, for grief and love, slew herself with his very sword. But King Pellinore rode on till he met a poor man, and asked him had he seen a knight pass by that way leading aforce a lady with him. Yes, surely, said the man, and greatly did she moan and cry. But even now another knight is fighting with him to deliver the lady. Ride on, and thou shalt find them fighting still. At that King Pellinore rode swiftly on, and came to where he saw the two knights fighting hard by where two pavilions stood. And when he looked in one of them, he saw that the lady, that was his quest, and with her 2 squires of the 2 knights had fought. Fair lady, he said, ye must come with me unto King Arthur's court. Sir Knight, said the 2 squires, yonder be 2 knights fighting for this lady. Go part them, and get their consent to take her, ere thou touch her. Ye sayest well, said King Pellinore, and rode between the combatants, and asked them why they fought. Sir Knight, said the one, yon lady is my cousin, mine aunt's daughter, whom I met borne away against her will by this knight here, with whom I therefore fight to free her. Sir Knight, replied the other, whose name was Lake of Wentland. This lady got I, by my arms and prowess, at King Arthur's court today. That is false, said King Pellinore. Ye stole the lady suddenly and fled away with her, before any knight could arm to stay thee. But it is thy service to take her back again, surely. Neither of ye shall therefore have her, but if you will fight for her, fight with me, now and here. Well, said the knights, make ready, and we will fall upon you with all of our might. Then Sir Hanslake ran King Pellinore's horse through with his sword, so that they might be all alike on foot. But King Pellinore was passing wroth, and ran upon Sir Hanslake with a cry, Keep well thy head, and gave him such a stroke upon the helm as clove him to the chin, so that he fell dead to the ground. When he saw that, the other knight refused to fight, and kneeling down said, "Take my cousin the lady with thee, as thy quest is, but as thou art a true knight, suffer her to come to neither shame nor harm." So the next day King Pellinore departed for Camelot, and took the lady with him, and as they rode in a valley full of rough stones, the damsel's horse stumbled and threw her, so that her arms were sorely bruised and hurt. And as they rested in the forest for the pain to lessen, night came on, and there they were compelled to make their lodging. A little before midnight they heard the trotting of a horse. "Be still," said King Pellinore, "for now we may hear of some adventure." And therewith he armed her. Then he heard two knights meet and salute each other in the dark, one riding from Camelot and another from the north. "What tidings at Camelot?" said one. "By my head," said the other, "I have but just left there, and have espied King Arthur's court, and such a fellowship is there that may never be broke or overcome, for well nigh all the chivalry of the world is there, and all full loyal to their king. And now I ride back homewards to the north to tell our chiefs that they waste not their strength in wars against them." "As for all that," replied the other knight, "I am but now from the north, and bear with me a remedy, the deadliest poison that was ever heard of, and to Camelot will I with it. For there we have a friend close to the king, greatly cherished of him, who hath received gifts from us to poison him, and he hath promised soon to do this task." "Beware," said the first knight, "of Merlin, for he knoweth all things by the devil's craft." "I will not fear that," replied the other, and so he rode upon his way. Anon King Pellinore and the lady passed on again, and when they came to the well at which the lady with the wounded knight had sat, they found both the knight and the damsel utterly devoured by lions and wild beasts, all save the lady's head. When King Pellinore saw that, he wept bitterly. "Alas, I might have saved her life, had but I tarried a few minutes in my quest. "Wherefore make so much sorrow now?" said the lady. "Oh, I know not," he answered, "but my heart grieveth greatly for this poor lady's death, so fair, so young." Then he required a hermit to bury the remains of the bodies, and bear the lady's head with him to Camelot to the court. When he was arrived, he was sworn to tell the truth of his quest before the king and queen. And when he had entered, the queen somewhat upbraided him, saying, "Ye were much to blame, for ye saved not that lady's life." He said to her, "Madam, I shall repent it for all of mine." "Aye, king," quoth Merlin, who suddenly came in, "and so ye ought to do, for that lady was your daughter, not seen since infancy by thee, and she was on her way to court with a right good young knight who would have been her husband, but was slain by the treachery of a felon knight, Lorraine the Savage, as they came. And because thou wouldst not abide and help her, thy best friend shall fail thee in thine hour of greatest need. For such is the penance ordained thee for that deed." Then did King Pellinore tell Merlin secretly of the treason he had heard in the forest, and Merlin by his craft ordered that the knight who bare the poison was himself soon after slain by it. And so, in this way, the life of King Arthur was saved. Okay, and with that we reach the end of part 3 of the glorious and legendary tales of King Arthur. Thank you to my top-tier supporters, Dark, Gary, Kimberly, Ember, Ben, Britt, Charles, Aaron, James, Jeffrey, Melissa, Scott, Stark Factory, Wendy, Jaden, Sherry, Jessica, Christine, Sally, Katiana, Christine, Fazabo, Legitimus, Maverick, Susan, Dr. Neuro, Nerd, Alexander, Nicholas, Daniel, JR, and Charlene. And thank you, dear listener, for joining me again. I hope that I can count on you to be back here next time to keep the fire of King Arthur burning, and the quest carries on. How dramatic. Well, good night, everyone. Lots of love to all of you.